Hello everybody. In this video, I'm going to be talking about complex or complexes in psychology. And well, let me start in the beginning. The first time I remember hearing this term was actually when I was in German class. And the teacher, who was Spanish from Spain, I think was talking about like the Mexican culture and how it's kind of different from like European or Spanish culture. And I remember one of the students in class, this girl, says, yeah, that's because el mexicano es acomplejado, right? That Mexican people have complexes, right? So like you understand it if I tell you like, you have a complex, right? But I wanted to dig in deeper into what that means because I saw this video and it got me thinking a lot about complexes and what they actually do and how you can actually overcome them and change yourself and improve yourself. So, first of all, what are they? The definition is emotionally significant ideas that are repressed completely or partly, and they cause psychic or emotional or psychological conflict, right? We have a couple of them, I think, that are very famous, but I'm going to get into like more specific personal examples. But let's just look at like the ones that are very general. You have superiority complex, which is when you think that you're better than everyone, right? You have inferiority complex, which is when you think you're less than everybody, right? And you kind of live like, I would say, a small or a petty life. You have the sexual ones like the Oedipus complex or the Electra complex, right? They're basically the same thing. It's just the Oedipus is for boys, for men, and the Electra complex is for girls or for women. But basically, what these complex refer to is like when you're a boy, you basically want to like sleep with your mom, and when you're a girl, like a kid, you want to sleep with your dad, right? Because they're like the first opposite sex person that you meet in your life, and there's a whole explanation behind these two complexes in psychoanalysis. And the persecution complex. So the persecution complex is when you think you're being like watched, right? Like the government's watching me, the CIA is watching me, the government's watching me. Everybody like they're out to kill me, they're out to get me, right? Which I think could lead to potentially like psychosis, schizophrenia, all those type of things. But we're not gonna get into those complexes, right? We're gonna get into this idea that I saw in a video that's called Carl Jung and the Psychology of Self-Sabotage. And actually, we're going to be talking about self-sabotage, how you sabotage yourself from things you want to do, things you want to achieve. So it's like this idea of why you sabotage yourself, right? Think about things that you really want, that you have worked towards, but you seem not to achieve. Excuse me. Why is that? Why is it that no matter how hard you work towards something, or not even work, like no matter how hard you want something, no matter how bad you want something, you seem not to achieve it, you seem not to get it? And this is because there is a fight. This video explains there is a fight between the ego and the unconscious. Now, I don't know if this has to do with like another video that I was going to watch called The Civil War Within You. The ego, there's a lot of bad talk about the ego, right? Anybody will always use that word as like a prerogative or in a negative way. They will say, you need to let go of your ego. Your ego is bad. Your ego is slowing you down. Blah blah blah. And it's like, no, your ego is actually good. Your ego is like right now I'm speaking with my ego. That's the person that is conscious, that's doing its best to take care of you, right? Obviously you have this other like mass internal structure, which is the unconscious, the primitive side of you, which is actually the one that's moving everything around, right? Like when you do things without thinking. But the thinking part of you is your ego. So you can't let go of that. You need to give its ego its due, its place. You need it, right? You can't just like let go of your ego, because otherwise you would just like die, right? You can't survive on your unconscious by itself. You need to know where you're going, pay attention, focus, right? So anyway, there's a fight between you because basically what happens is that your unconscious and your ego have two different personalities, right? And most of the time, the areas where they're in conflict are extremes, right? So all you need to do is detect the extremes, right? And reconcile those things. Now I'm going to get into like some examples. But the video says that there's, for example, there's this girl that wants to like move out, and she wants to move away from the city because she hates people, and she's trying to like start up her own online company and save money and buy like a land in the country. But like when she gets presented the opportunity to buy a cheap piece of land, she finds excuses not to, right? She'll say, no, it's got these defects, I don't like it because of this, you know. When she gets the opportunity to make her business grow, she also finds excuses for it not to grow, right? And it's very hard to detect this because the video also says you have to be brutally honest with yourself. So you have to see those areas in your life where you are sabotaging yourself, you know, and they may be very well justified, but you still have to recognize and acknowledge that you are limiting that progress. Now there's a reason why you're limiting that progress. In this example of the girl, it's because her unconscious, or let's call it more specifically, the shadow also knows that you need connection, that you can't just get away from everybody, that it's going to be bad for you, right? So that's where I say you need to reconcile and kind of, you know, they show this image of like the white image, the white animation of the girl and the black animation of the girl, which represents like the ego and the shadow, shaking hands, right? Where at the end she comes to an agreement with herself where she's going to start up her business, but she's going to use the free time and the resources and the money to spend time with her family, right? So it's kind of like you have to look at those extremes and reconcile them, right? Because they're both part of you. It's not about eliminating like the bad part or the good part, or you know, going from one extreme to the other. It's actually about recognizing and joining those two needs, right? The video explains that there are different yous inside of you, right? Excuse me. And you can see this when you're like out in public, right? Like maybe at your job, you're the worker. With your family, you're the brother, the son, the daughter, the sister, right? With your friends, you're the funny guy, or you're the shy girl or whatever, right? So there are all of these different yous, and all of them have needs. They're your needs, and you just need to acknowledge them, right? Okay. So yeah, the answer is in detecting the extremes and avoiding those extremes, right? Reconciling them. Okay, so I'm gonna give you my example with me. For example, I feel like I've always wanted to be famous, right? Have money, riches, wealth, be popular, you know, be like a celebrity. But no matter how hard I've tried to do that, which I actually think I haven't even really tried that much, but there's the self-sabotaging, right? Like maybe I say, yeah, I could do that, but that's gonna mean this, and I don't want to do this, and it's a risk, and it's not even that for sure. But still, I'm self-sabotaging myself, right? In small ways, when you yourself put up excuses, or you see reasons not to do something that you want to do, you're sabotaging yourself. It's self-sabotage, right? Because you're limiting your progress, or what could be progress, right? Yeah, you find excuses like, no, that's not going to get me anywhere. They're probably not going to call me back, so I'm not even going to try, whatever, right? But it's like, why? Maybe that's my ego, right? My ego is telling me, you got to get rich, you got to be famous. This is something I want. But my shadow, my unconscious is like, no, because you also like stability, right? And I'm a Taurus, so I don't know if that has something to do with it. But that's something that I don't recognize in myself, right? That I hadn't recognized in myself until now, and that's where, you know, the extremes idea comes in. So it's like, okay, if I like stability and I'm famous, famous equals unstable situations, right? Unpredictable situation. So you're not going to be happy. You're not happy not being famous, but you're not going to be happy being extremely famous either, right? So there has to be like a balance, right? Which I could say my balance would be, okay, you want this, right? So go out and get it, but you also need to consider your balance, right? You want your stability, you like your stability, right? So it's kind of like I'm gonna do things on my own terms. I'm moving at my own pace, at my own rhythm, right? With these two sides of me shaking hands and negotiating where we're headed to, right? Now, that's just one example. You could have many conflicting battles in yourself, many different versions of your ego, many different versions of your unconscious. But I think there are very clear conflict zones when you think about this, right? It's like, where are you at trouble with yourself? Where do you have your problems? Where are they, right? Where do you have your mental, emotional, psychological problems? And you most likely you will be able to find a dichotomy, right? I don't know why they express themselves in dichotomies, right? I think because according to the seven hermetic principles, it's the same thing, right? It's the same, just in different degrees. It's the same idea, like cold and hot. It's the same thing, just in different degrees, right? So it's like unstable, or I don't know how you would. I'm gonna call it chaos and order, right? Instability and stability. So maybe this idea of being famous and this idea of having stability, it's like that dichotomy for me. It's like you like disorder, but you also like order. So it's like you need to, but it's the same thing, just in different degrees, right? So you need to acknowledge that and kind of live that out to a certain extent, right? Um, Now, I wanted to mention there's this question: what do you seem to work towards but cannot achieve, right? Which in this case, that would be your shadow, right? This is the bottom line. And I hope this video helps you in coming to the realization of what that is, right? Excuse me. So there is something, or there are probably many things which you want to achieve, but you can't seem to achieve, right? And you need to recognize that it may be self-sabotage and recognize why you're self-sabotaging, right? It's not because there's a devil living inside of you and they're just playing tricks on you and giving you a hard time. No, it has nothing to do with that. It's because there are other needs that you're not acknowledging, right? Basically, that's what that is. You need to figure out what those needs are, and you need to include those needs in with your ego needs or your conscious needs, right? And that's the whole, I would say that's the whole shadow work. That's the whole individuation of Carl Jung, where you're actually reconciling these two opposite sides. I've spoken about this many times in like the balance videos and things like that. But this is like what I'm adding here in this video is this idea that I saw in this other video, which is the self-sabotaging notion, right? Where it's actually you. It's like like the Scooby-Doo meme where like they take off the mask from the bad guy, and it's you, right? You've been your own bad guy, right? Like they say, you are your own worst enemy, right? Um, so yeah, to kind of finish off this video, I wanted to ask you this, and I want you to really think about it. What does you, because some people may say, well, I don't even know where to go from here. I don't know what to do. I don't know what you're really talking about. I kind of get it, but I wouldn't even know where to start. So I want to leave you with this question. What does your intuition tell you, right? Like if you just sit in silence in meditation or in prayer and you just ask yourself, these questions like, what do you want? What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? Why haven't you achieved what you want to achieve, right? What are your complexes? What are the things that you are repressing completely or partially, right? What things are you hiding from yourself? What things can you not see, right? And then you just let your intuition guide you, right? It's irrational. It's not going to make sense. It's just the things that will start coming into your mind. Work with those things. Don't ignore them. Don't put them off. Because if you keep putting them off, they're going to, what complexes ultimately do is they fuck you up, right? If you ignore them, they are pieces of you, needs and wants inside of you that need to be acknowledged and expressed and cared for, and their needs need to be met. If they're not, they're gonna give you trouble, right? They're gonna make your life miserable. That's why they say people have complexes, because it's like, you know, like the inferiority complex, right? It's like a person will say, you're short, right? I think some people, that's a stereotype, but short people may have inferiority complexes. So if a person says like, oh yeah, like someone's just sitting there, and they overhear someone say, oh yeah, like a tall and strong guy, right? Maybe they'll have that need to say, well, strong people can be short too, right? And it's like, well, you have an inferiority complex, and that person may say, no, I don't, right? I'm fine just the way I am, and they actually do, right? I'm not saying all people do, but everybody, it's different for everybody. Everybody's gonna have their own complexes. That's just like a stupid example, but if you do, and you're not recognizing or acknowledging it, right, it's gonna give you trouble. So that's why you got to acknowledge it. You got to be a person that says, okay, here are my troubles, here are my complexes, and try to join them together, right? So let me know what you think about this topic. I thought it was pretty interesting, especially the self-sabotage part. And yeah, I guess that's all I got for this video, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, peace.